Hello and welcome to Jupiter Gets Emotional. I'm Christopher Rayman Witecki, your astrologer and soul biographer, here to dive into the depths of the Jupiter in Cancer transit. And boy, will it be emotional. This is an expansion of our emotional maturity on Earth. It's a heavy transit, it's a difficult transit, and thank goddess it only happens once every 12 years. Jupiter, being the planet of our wisdom and our knowledge, is hitting Cancer, the sign of human emotion. And so we're all being forced to expand what we understand to be our feelings and expand how we respond to our feelings. And this is really what determines the masters from the juniors on the planet. Masters all work with their emotional field, all work with passion. Juniors kind of make the rest of the world deal with their emotions, make the rest of the world deal with their passion. That's really what separates the men from the boys and the princesses from the queens. So we're going to dive into this video and find out what's going on for you in this transit. Now the transit technically lasts a full year, from July 2013 to July 2014. Because it's so intense, this is just part A of my video series, which is going to dive into the transit for July to December. So we're looking at the rest of 2013 for this video to understand where you will get emotional. Each of the videos dives into sun sign and rising. Remember, your sun sign is the minute going on in your life, so the actions in the moment, and your rising is the long story, the long-term actions going on. So you can buy both videos to get the full story. And before we dive into what's going on for you, I want to look at a little bit of the astro history of Jupiter in Cancer so you can get a real idea of what this means and how it affects you. Let's take a look. Now, looking at this timeline here, this is precisely the dates involved every time Jupiter's been in Cancer in this particular century. As you can see, we're in July 2013, and that is the time where you're going to see a rapid expansion of your motion beginning in early July. Now, the last time we had this expansion was the year of July 2001 to 2002. For those of you who live in the United States, this was the infamous 9/11 terrorist attack that happened in September of 2001. And the United States, which is a Cancer, born July 4th, 1776, and the president, Cancer George W. Bush, handled this emotional trauma, and the United States had to endure. The rest of the world also felt that pain, and regardless of the national circumstances, if you go back to your life in 2001 to 2002, you will see that you were dealing with the issues talked about in this video. You will see that you grew at that time, or didn't, or refused to, and you will see that these issues are once again back. But don't stop there. If you're old enough, go one more time to July 1989 to 1990. Guess who just got elected as president then? George Bush. Guess also what was happening? Well, the United States was having a hard time. We were coming out of a very bad time where we had an Alzheimer president leaving. That was a little shady and kind of weird. We had Ollie North trials going on. We had the Exxon Valdez oil spill, which made the whole world upset. If you look at the 1989 drama, there was plenty of it, and the United States was going through its times. But look in your own life in that year and see for yourself where you grew in 89, if you remember. Even if you were a child, what changed between 89 and 90? But just making it even more interesting, let's go way, way back in time to June 1942. This was, of course, when the United States entered World War II. Again, the United States, a Cancer, entering into a world war. We had been bombed in December of 41, but we didn't go to war and put our boys at risk really until the summer of 42. So pretty interesting there. And of course, one more date you can't deny is June 30th to 31st, the time before that Jupiter was in Cancer. And of course, what was that? The World Depression and the Dust Bowl. Of course, once again, the stock market crashed November of the year before, but the Dust Bowl, the real starvation, the real difficulty and unemployment and fear really hit that summer of 1930, as well as the crops drying up. So as you can see with this timeline, every time Jupiter goes into Cancer, and do your research, look up your grandparents' birthdays, look up other people, it's really fascinating to see, but every time Jupiter goes in Cancer, human beings have this issue with having to grow up emotionally. So let's talk about some of the things we can expect in this video. For one, you should understand kind of the mapping of Jupiter in Cancer. It tends to go back and forth. So in 9/11, the United States was attacked. This time, probably the United States will be seen as the bad guy. And as I tape this video, that's already the case. This kid named Edward Snowden has stolen secrets in the United States and is making us look bad worldwide. So already the U.S. is on the receiving side of this. And that's how karma works. If you felt like you were victimizing yourself the last time Jupiter's in Cancer, be careful about being victimized, or be careful about moving it in the outer world. So karma has a way of going 180. So you might find yourself being the one breaking hearts this time if you had your heart broken last time. Look for that to change every Jupiter in Cancer. But the truth is that people have dialectical growth anyway. So even though the United States was the victim the last time, and now the United States is looking like the perpetrator, the truth is the United States is also going to take some hits for this. So it really is just a matter of who starts the cause and effect cycle and where will the cycle start. So it all starts in July of 2013. And following this introduction, we're going to dive into, for your sign and your rising, a month-by-month breakdown of the events that happen. And because there's so many events and so much, I cut the video into 6 months and kept it so that you can focus on the first half of the transit. So without further ado, let's dive into the details of your Jupiter in Cancer expansion. Hey there, Geminis and Gemini risings. Thank you so much for making this video purchase, and I think you're going to be very grateful that you did as well. I've said that to all the signs. Jupiter in Cancer is an expansion of the good old-fashioned word of abundance, but it starts with self-esteem. Our ability to manifest is what Cancer energy is used for when you're a Gemini. Geminis must get emotional to manifest. Right off the bat, you can start to see some of the issues, can't you? Because when you're a Gemini or you have a Gemini rising, you like to talk about it, you like to read about it, you don't like to feel about it. You like to detach and stay detached from your own personal feelings. But you're a human being. You don't get to be a robot or Spock. You have to kind of have all 12 states awareness firing. And so this transit is about expanding your emotional self-esteem, which then expands your potential to manifest abundance on the planet. Now, the first aspect of this that you're going to have to face are areas of your life that interfere with your confidence. So if you have relationships that interfere with your confidence, jobs, a health problem, a lack of creativity, a lack of joy, a lack of direction, if anything in your life is going wrong and contributing to self-esteem, it will now go really wrong, because the universe is trying to get you to feel good about everything, good as in positive, good as in valuable. And so the first thing that the universe does, or Jupiter does, is knock the legs out from under anything built out of straw, anything built on false foundations. In other words, if your ego has written checks that your soul can't cash, they will bounce. All right? Not to mention other things will bounce too. If you've been living on credit and haven't been living on actual, productive energy, you're going to have massive financial issues during this time in the beginning. Keep in mind, Gemini and Gemini rising, that the universe has its interest in raising your prices, in raising your soul capital, which is what I call this consciousness. But to get there, you have to get rid of whatever is taking away from it. So the Sun-Pluto opposition for Geminis and Gemini risings is recognizing that you're hemorrhaging energy over the border for someone else, or hemorrhaging energy for a job that doesn't pay, or hemorrhaging energy for a relationship that doesn't give back. And the step to fix that is to cut it off, which is Pluto over in Capricorn. So it's going to be a very intense year for you. The beginning deals with facing all of your insecurities, and unfortunately, the only way to build soul capital is usually to prove it to yourself that it's false, that you don't have the issue, that you will be just fine. And so we prove it to ourselves to do it. That said, you are going to be having things fall apart in the beginning, self-esteem issues fall apart in the beginning, and you're going to want to come up with practical solutions. Also, all the relationships in your life, they're used to getting things for free. If you stand up and you say no, they're all going to go on strike. They're all going to unionize against you. They're all going to point at you and say you're the bad guy for sticking up for what you're worth. They're just trying to get off the bottle. So moving forward, it's going to be a rocky time, and it's not going to be the most fun for you, because this is what Geminis don't like: emotion, lots of it. But don't worry, the whole planet's going through it, not just you, so don't feel picked on. Jupiter in Cancer last time happened in 2001, and so you might replay to your life in 2001 and 2002 and look at how your self-confidence grew, and then project that potential for now. All right? So let's take a look at what's going on. As we start off in July, the sun goes into Cancer, Jupiter goes into Cancer, and so this is the official shift to Soul Capital. July 5th through July 9th will probably be the most intense time, as any false checks you can't cash, any debts, any kind of disrespect of your value system just becomes blatantly obvious. Relationships in your life that don't respect your value become blatantly obvious. Areas where people are stealing from you become blatantly obvious. So it's kind of a sad time, July 5th through July 9th, where you get kind of wave after wave of probably bad news, information, or maybe even, bill collectors if you're having literal financial issues. So there's first breakdowns there. Saturn is at 4 degrees but direct, which means you have the responsibility of keeping your life going and focused in the moment despite all the emotional chaos. Gemini energy wants to detach and run. You can't. Saturn says stay there, fight it out. Neptune in Pisces says your career and legacy will get pulled into this too. So this grand trine in water really unites you trying to raise your prices, but you have to stay in focus in the moment and keep anything in the moment from intruding upon your work, and you have to intuitively point to where your future is, intuitively point to where your career legacy is. So intuition and hard boundaries in the moment get you out of feeling out of control with self-esteem or money. So July 5th through 9th, breakdowns. July 14th through July 20th, life will change dramatically. Jupiter moves to 4 degrees, and this is kind of the no man's land, the point of no return. You will have friendships end forever. You will have bank accounts close forever. You will have anything that is in the way of you feeling good basically continue to collapse. So you might have thought that the bad news was just the first 2 weeks, but the second 2 weeks, unfortunately, perhaps deeper bad news, or the full bottom falls out of whatever that was in the beginning, a little along there. Then in August, the sun moves into Leo, and so it moves out of Soul Capital and into the house of intellect. In fact, it actually moves into the house of intellect at the end of July. So you get very pensive and very heady, and the whole point is to upgrade your thinking now to match your soul capital desires. So your mind must think with the new prices, and you must communicate with the new prices. So as you are starting to feel pretty strong, because the sun in Leo, the mind, is what you were best at, this is the time where you'll have probably the mental capacity to decide and act on the cuts you want to make. You might cut away from a bad job. You might cut away from a losing investment. You might cut away from a losing investment in a person. Basically, wherever you're hemorrhaging value consciousness over the border, or wherever emotional turmoil is degrading your self-esteem, so like your relationship to this one friend causes so much turmoil you feel like crap, anything like that, cut and go. August 11th through the 20th, then, you're manifesting and healing from your losses. The sun is still in Leo, and so you are getting high-minded, and you're adopting a higher attitude that's based on having cut the spiritual debt off, okay? Then at the end of the month, August 27th through September 7th, the sun moves into Virgo, which makes you emotionally very vulnerable. So you should know that you're going to be emotionally vulnerable. It's almost like the whole summer catches up to you August 27th. So over this kind of holiday break, not only are you feeling extremely emotional and vulnerable yourself, but Jupiter is doing its tier 2 breakdowns, its chapter 2 breakdowns. So this means that having filed bankruptcy or quitting the job, let's say that you quit a job, now you're finding that you have to file bankruptcy, a second tier of how deep the debt goes. Or for instance, maybe you lose your credit cards at that point. But it's a second tier. Basically what it is you had issues with supporting yourself and being self-confident. You got rid of the things that were parasiting off of you. But then by August 27th, you're getting to the issues in your life that cause the parasites to come. And so any kind of deeper parasites get cut off at that point too. Parasites meaning bills, people disrespect you, people crossing your line, people not paying your prices, okay? So August is a lot of fixing the bottom tier, but also being brought to the next tier. And because the sun is in Virgo, you're feeling very emotionally vulnerable, I have to say. All right. Now, as September rolls in, the sun is in Virgo, and this is the first time you've actually looked at emotions without having a cause. So I'm predicting that there won't be a lot of trauma in September, like outside trauma, because the lesson is all how you respond to yourself emotionally. Even your self-esteem will only go so far if you're not at home, loving yourself, replenishing your batteries, tending to your emotions in a very Sun in Virgo way. You because you have a Gemini prickly pear mind or a Gemini prickly pear ego for Gemini risings, then what your emotions need to feel good are very specific, detailed, thought-based ideas. So it's like you need your teddy bear and you need your red rose and you need this, you need that. The point is with the Sun in Virgo, you want to nurture yourself and feel better, and what you're going to find is that feeling better emotionally just overeating makes you feel more confident in soul capital. That your emotions and your emotional well-being directly play into your ability to manifest or get things done. Now, September 8th through 20th, breakthroughs happen. So now, as you're starting to feel better and nurture yourself, you will have job opportunities, attract new investment potentials, perhaps attract new relationships that treat you like an equal and see you like an equal. So September 8th through 20th is really great. The Sun is wrapping up in home, family, and foundation. And if you were thinking to move or upgrade your house, this year might be the year, since Jupiter is in Cancer. You know, as you're in this Sun in Virgo, you might be really looking at an actual move, which would be great. By the end of the month, September 22nd, the Sun then moves into Libra, which is going to be a very trying time, the Sun in Libra, because we're going to get to what's fair and what's not fair. And as far as what you're worth, Jupiter in Cancer, you're going to commit to your future, you're going to commit to what you want to produce, what you want to manifest, and what you think you're worth. So your soul capital in Jupiter in Cancer is committing to what you're worth. But the Sun in Libra is asking your heart what you're worth, and that's what Libra is for Geminis, your relationship to your inner child. So as we move into late Libra here in October, oops, I went ahead too far. As we move into early October and into Libra, we run into a bunch of squares, a grand square, a T-square. Basically, we get into an internal spiritual traffic jam in October because the Sun in Libra is highlighting your inner child. But opposing that is Uranus in Aries, which is pulling you to be something else in the world. So you're fighting the lines between what your heart wants and what the world thinks. Those are two lines. But then your heart is also opposing your value system and your boundaries. Okay, so this Sun in Libra T-squares Jupiter and Pluto, Jupiter in Cancer and Pluto in Capricorn, and so your heart will be torn between what's valuable, where you draw the line, and what coordinates that, your heart. So your heart determines what you're worth. Your heart determines where the line is. And so although you were looking at where lines are and what you're worth from an intellectual perspective up until now, in early October, you're looking at these lines from your heart. Screw the intellect, screw the Gemini. So this is a part where your heart has to win. And this T-squaring really intensifies on October 13th, where you're going to feel paralyzed and forced to just go within. And that's the whole point of the universe, for you to ask your heart what you want, not to concern yourself with the money or the lines or what society thinks. Only listen to you. Then October 21st, Jupiter goes to 20 degrees, which is master shui, which means now you get very passionate and very emotional about money and abundance and self-confidence. And what happens? Mercury retrogrades. So the twins flip. You know, when a Mercury retrograde, the Gemini twins flip. One twin goes to the outer world goes to the inner world. You think inside out for 3 straight weeks. So as the universe pushes you into the pool of passion and has you T-squared with boundaries and social life and everything else, you lose your right mind and have to use your left mind instead. So definitely a challenging time in October. Then we get to Halloween. That's just the first half. Okay, so moving into October 21st, the Sun now moves into Scorpio. And so the story officially is not your inner child, but your actual lifestyle. And this is where the profound change can or can't happen, when the Sun moves into Scorpio and shifts it to lifestyle. First of all, the Sun is going to call for you to draw the emotional lines that are important. You've got to cut things out of your life that are in the way of your heart, that are in the way of your feelings, that are in the way of your self-esteem, or that are not respecting your boundaries. That's step one with the Sun in Scorpio. Then when it gets to October 28th, boy, do things heat up. Okay? After making those preliminary cuts, the universe calls you to make hard cuts in your daily reality. So at this point, you will quit jobs, you will say goodbye to people, you will decide to have major medical things done or not done, or surgeries performed or not performed. It will be a major cutting off the bottom half of your life, the lower vibration stuff. At the same time, Saturn at 13 degrees is shattering ceilings for you to have a greater life than you've ever understood. So you're breaking up and you're breaking down, very tumultuous. Where's Jupiter? Well, it's in Cancer in Master Shui, so you're super emotional about how all these changes are going to affect your value. how they're going to affect your safety. So that Jupiter-Pluto opposition, which is still in effect, although not direct, is pulling on you in both ways about values and whatnot. Now, Pluto is direct, which means all this activity of you cutting off the low and breaking the glass ceiling above, all of this is brand new. All of this is untested. All of this is new boundaries you've never tried before. And so there is a trepidation there as well, or a nervousness there as well over Halloween. At the end of the day, my prediction for October is it's going to separate the men from the boys and the princesses from the queens. It's going to determine who has to do another round of self-esteem building and who moves up to the next round of self-esteem building, but still learning. Either way, everyone has an opportunity, Gemini rising, to raise self-esteem. But if you're feeling bad about yourself after Halloween, you're doing a repeat of the grade. You've got to go back and learn something. You should at least have cut the bottom off by Halloween. Now, moving on to November, things finally quiet down when it comes to self-esteem, soul capital, and abundance. For one, Jupiter retrogrades November 6th. So while Sun in Scorpio is changing your life forever, Jupiter gives you a break and says, that's it, no more self-esteem growth for 5.5 months. So thank Goddess for that. Then November 7th, the very next day, the Sun crosses Saturn, which means that is the final kind of signing of the contract of the new lifestyle. The new lifestyle is something you've been working on for a long time, for a whole year now, this new lifestyle. And actually, I've created another video, Saturn in Scorpio, that talks about this as another whole story, just like this one. But I will tell you this at this point, this is the major turning point in your lifestyle. Much of it has to do with the fact that your soul capital now has reached new possibilities and new heights. And don't forget the Grand Trine, Neptune and Pisces is leading you to a greater career. So as of November 7th, you cut the line, that's it. Jupiter's retrograde, but Jupiter and Saturn now are coordinating, so your lifestyle feels valuable and the values, are being supported in your lifestyle. It's starting to come together, I believe, by mid-November. By the end of November, Thanksgiving, Sun in Sagittarius time, now the energy shifts to relationships and your marriage. So you end November questioning your values and long-term relationships. That's how November ends. Then that brings us to December. Now, with the Sun in Sagittarius, you'll be working on your relationships, your marriages, and your partnerships. And you'll be looking at how you treat yourself basically in a given relationship and really reflecting on that. And because Jupiter is retrograde, you'll be looking at your marriage without having to push forward with value. So Jupiter is allowing you to look at I don't value myself here at Jupiter retrograde, and I don't value myself in this relationship in Jupiter retrograde, and I guess I haven't been valuing myself in that relationship. Will the relationships change? Maybe, maybe not, because Jupiter's not direct. But what is changing is your sense of balance and fairness, which is super important because Mars is in Libra right now. What does that mean, Chris? It means that Mars, war, is in Libra, which is fairness. So Mars is pushing for absolute fairness. So although the soul capital and these other stories kind of quiet down at Christmas time, justice is heard. That grand square that you were caught in with your inner child and drawing boundaries and drawing values, all this stuff, that T-square energy, see, that all comes to justice in the early December. So you might not have seen justice right there before Halloween, but here, crazy, 2 weeks before Christmas, justice begins to happen. So you'll find that your inner child and personal dreams move forward, even though self-esteem may not, even though other things may not. So that's good. Jupiter and Saturn are trining really well together here in December. So what that means is, finally, inside your heart is aligned with your values. So your inner child feels valuable, and you are investing in what your inner child's future is. So you're starting to see nice synergy there between the Mars, thanks to Saturn and Jupiter trining. Jupiter's still retrograde, Saturn's still direct. So you're pushing forward with the new life and your inner child, and you're starting to feel the values in that new life as well, with the inner child justice going on in the background. So December is really good. Venus retrograde in Capricorn at the end there, at December 22nd. What's important about that is, remember, Capricorn is where you draw the lines. So Venus is giving and receiving. So as Christmas comes and whatnot, you're heading for giving and receiving. You're heading for opening up and trust and intimacy. And then Venus retrogrades, which means you're not going to be receiving much at Christmas. Nobody is. In fact, Venus retrograde over Christmas means people give to themselves. People have to be there for themselves. People have to learn to find their own inner resources to receive from. So after a very hard year, everyone is ending the year on a New Year's Eve that is very much with a lot of question marks. Jupiter's retrograde, you don't necessarily know your value as of yet. Venus is retrograde, so you're not really receiving, or nothing's really moving forward in the gift giving or in the manifestation of things. It's that Venus versus the Jupiter there. At the same time, you feel your inner child is champion, but you don't know where that's going just of yet. So the end of the year is very kind of just floating like a boat waiting with no engine. But as we move into January, and the next Part B video will show you, it takes up from there, and the whole point of this Gemini and Gemini risings is for you to manifest great abundance and to feel great about yourself. So as questionable as it may be at the end of the year, you're on the right path. All right, let's wrap up. Alrighty, well this concludes Jupiter Gets Emotional Part A. I will be producing and distributing Part B here shortly, and I'll be emailing you at the email address you provided when you bought this video when the next Part B is available. Until then, pay close, mindful attention to your feelings, expand, grow, and don't take it personally. And remember, you're not alone. We're all going through this together. Until next time, I love you, and live, love, be.